Hey guys, Travis Tooke here. I'm going to be talking a bit about my experience at the Kokoro event put on by the people over at Sealfit. And I wrote a pretty thorough article about this already, but if you're like me, you're more of an audiobook type of guy than a regular book type of person, so you might enjoy listening to it more than reading it. So, quick background on what Kokoro is. Kokoro is an event put on by Sealfit. Sealfit is an organization led by former Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. And the idea is to bring the challenge of Navy SEALs and make it available to civilians who want to go through something very difficult. This is a 50-hour event, so it's not the full Hell Week that you would get in the real Navy SEALs, but it is just as intense during those 50 hours. This is something I've wanted to do for a while. I've done an event with them before, back in 2014. It was actually a 5-day event, but we were sleeping every night, and it was broken up into sessions of yoga, classroom time, so it wasn't nonstop the way that this one was. And I knew this was going to be the hardest thing I had ever done my entire life. I trained every day for 2 months, more than I ever have really for anything, just preparing for it. And it was quite a bit harder than what I had imagined. And I imagined it being as hard as it could be. So I'm going to jump into it and just talk a little bit about it, and hopefully you enjoy. So got there on Friday, September 17th, about 8:30 in the morning. We arrive, kind of meet up with the teammates. I'd already met some of these guys the night before we went out and had dinner, and just, sort of got to know who we were going to be working with. There were a total of 13 of us. When we arrived that morning, we were dressed like we were told, which was BDU pants, which are like these military style pants, combat boots for like hiking, up mountains, and a white t-shirt with our last name stenciled on the front and the back. Those were the rules. If you broke those rules, you're in big trouble. Of course, it wouldn't have mattered. We were in so much trouble the whole time. That would have just been one more little thing, really. We hung out there for a bit, just kind of stretching, getting our bodies ready, staying hydrated, and waiting for the coaches to arrive. The coaches got there about 9:30, and we could see them like talking to each other, about 30, 40 yards away from us. So we like got ourselves in check. We're like, okay, we know that they're looking for, a reason to yell at us. So let's not give them any more of a reason. So we all lined up, had our shirts tucked in, had our bags, on us, ready to go. And we tried to look as organized as we could. They started, talking about the event, how hard it was going to be, encouraging us to leave if we weren't up for the task. And then they had us drop down and start off with a few push-ups. So it wasn't too bad. They didn't yell at us too bad at the beginning. So it helped that we kind of got ourselves organized. We got our bags. Then we had to run for a bit, kind of up, down this path and up and around this hill. And we got to this view on the top of the hill where we could look down and see what they call the grinder, like in like workouts, like the grind, like where you do the push-ups and pull-ups and all that stuff. But the coaches like to call it the battlefield. And he talked about how, ancient warriors used to fight, and how they would have to, they would meet their enemies on the battlefield, and they're fighting hand to hand. They're fighting with weapons, like blade weapons and clubs and swords. There were no guns, at one point in history. And so every time you fought, your chance of death was high. And it usually wasn't a quick death. It was a really brutal, painful death. And so he used this to sort of get us to try to summon the courage to go through what we were about to go through. Even though we knew it wasn't life or death, or not quite. It felt like it a few times. But no one was trying to cut our heads off. But it's still, sort of focused our minds like, okay, we're about to do something really tough and challenging, and we better be focused and ready to go. About 10:30, Commander Mark Devine shows up, and this will be the first time that we would see him until the very end. And so he is kind of introduced into it. His tone is a little more friendly than the other coaches up to this point. I think he's kind of smiling, but it's like that smile knowing we're about to go through hell. And so he was a little bit friendly. The other coaches were trying to mess with us right off the bat. They were just walking around. They were trying to, they wanted to, first they wanted to find out what we did for a living, what our hobbies and things like that were. But they would try to use it, against us. And I remember these two coaches came up at one point, and one coach, he looks at me and he's like, Tooke, who do you think is cuter, me or him? And he's like, and they're looking at me just deadpan serious. Like, I need to tell them who is the more attractive coach. But I know humor is like a big part of it. Even if they don't laugh, you have to take moments of opportunity to laugh and smile, or it's just going to be a miserable time. I remember I looked at him and I was like, I don't know, coach, you're pretty handsome, but he's got a great beard, so I got to go with him. And I thought that would get a laugh, but not at all. It was like, all right, Tooke, you're one of those guys, huh? You're one of them. I bet you check out all the coaches. I bet you want to grapple with us, because at this point they knew I did jiu-jitsu, and it was hilarious. But I was trying not to laugh. I wanted to keep it as serious as they were. So anyway, once they got it started, there was no warning. Like, hey guys, get ready. We're gonna start in 3 minutes. They just blast this siren, and the coach, who just had the perfect voice for yelling at people, just starts ordering us, what to do. And so we drop down and we're just doing push-ups, sit-ups, squats, flutter kicks. Those are my least favorite. And they're spraying us with the hose. And just when your muscles are, can't really take much more, it's when they would order you over to the ice bath. And they had these two big tubs, and you had to fully submerge in one, exit, and then fully submerge in the other, exit. And, if you've ever been in an ice bath, it's a shocking feeling. It just takes the breath right out of you. So as you're trying to catch your breath, you have to run back and start doing all the stuff again, the push-ups, the sit-ups, all that stuff. And so they start us off very, very intense. You have to be ready to go right away. There's no warning. We do that for a while, like a solid hour or more. And then we end that session. We're all pretty tired. We've done so many push-ups and squats. We're just, every muscle's already feeling it. And this is when I was sort of like wondering, like, how am I going to get through? I've got at least 48 plus hours left. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through. And then I remember, like, that's a terrible idea to have that thought, to think about what you have to go through. It's not a good idea. So I just put that out of my head, and I'm like, okay, next thing. What's the next thing? I'm going to do that. And as far as I'm concerned, that's all I have to do. And so they tell us to get a rucksack, which, by the way, a rucksack is like a bag just designed to carry heavy stuff in it. It's like a military bag. And I have my own, which is not bad. It's pretty comfortable. But for Kokoro, you're not allowed to bring your own. Some of the other groups that are in, different challenges that are not 50 hours long could bring their own. We could not. We had to use theirs, and they were the worst. They were just really bad material. They dug into you, so uncomfortable, especially when you get sandy, and it's just, it was just the worst bags ever. So we get those. Then they gave us a weighted baton. That's like our weapon. And it was like very important. Don't lose your weapon. Keep it close to your side. So we jog for a while. We finally come to this area where there's like a length of sand, like a bunch of sand, right? And, then I don't know what we did. We did something wrong, so the coach just makes us crawl for a long portion of it. And it's not nice, fine-grained sand like you would have on the beach. It's basically just rocks that are broken down into really small pieces. So they're very gritty. They really dig into your skin. And so we do that for a while. And then we get to, and we're still really tired at this point, but then we get to start with some of the challenges. And this is the first time we did an event called It Pays to Be a Winner. Basically, that's just a challenge. It's you against everyone else, or they might break you into teams, and it's your team against another team. So We did a lot of run races. We did bear walk races. My favorite one was the somersault races because I do jiu-jitsu, so I could blast through the somersaults all the way to the end. And I remember the coaches were like impressed enough to let me do it more than everybody else. So it almost never paid to be a winner if you won the it pays to be a winner event. You learn that right away. If you win something, the next thing is just going to be that much worse. So that got me kind of nauseous. After that, then we had these extra sandbags that we filled up 1/3. It was about like 30, 35 pounds worth of sand, depending on how accurate you got the 1/3 part. I remember a few guys they give you a time limit on everything you do, and a few guys, I know they overfilled the bags. And then once they filled it, we had to swap bags with another teammate. So you didn't know how much sand you were getting in yours because you didn't get the one you filled up. And some people that overestimated ended up giving another teammate like probably a heavier bag than average. Plus we had these 1 gallon like water jugs, and we had to put those in the bag. So I think a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds. So now we're carrying that. And our baton, which is, I don't know how much that weighed, 15, 20 pounds or so. And so then we have to ruck. And ruck means like you're basically fast walking or light jogging with a heavy bag on your shoulders. So we do that, and then we get our first break. That's where we get under this tree, and now we get to eat a meal called an MRE, a meal ready to eat. It's just the worst food that there is, and it's just all like prepackaged, dehydrated, flavorless, bland, slimy food. It just sucks, but you have to eat it. You need every calorie there, or you're going to burn out on the next session. I do remember that they fed us really well. They kept us really hydrated, and in fact, every time we would start like a new challenge, I was always full from the last meal. Like my stomach was still full, but you needed it. You burned through it very quickly. So we did that. At this point, I remember one guy started really having some trouble. I think he got dehydrated and his body started breaking down. And I don't remember if he dropped then or if it was a little later, but this is where you started seeing the first signs of a few team members, having some real challenges with the event. I mean, we're all tired, but this is the first sign where it was like, okay, there might be some people getting ready to drop pretty soon. So then after we did all that, we ate a little bit. Then we grab our rucks. They give you very little time to eat. You have to really scarf your food down. And we almost never finished all of our meals because we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't eat that fast. So now it's around 2 p.m., I think, and we ruck back to the battlefield, the grinder area. And now we get to do the PST. That's the physical screening test. This is a test that you're required to pass in order to qualify for the event. They do this in the military. They do it for this event. But it's not something like you do the test right when you get there when you're fresh, because everybody in the group could do that. They wait until you're really tired. And I'm telling you, at this point, they've burned us really good with all the work. And so the way the test goes is you got to do 50 push-ups in 2 minutes, 50 squats in under 2 minutes, 50 sit-ups in under 2 minutes, then 1 set of max pull-ups, and you have to do a minimum of 10, and then you have to run a mile in under 9.5 minutes while wearing your combat boots and pants. And none of those are really that big of a deal. I've done all those. I can beat all those numbers normally, but not when I'm this tired. I've never done them when I was this tired. And so they get us ready to go after we had already done like even more push-ups when we got back to the grinder, because like I said, we were constantly making little errors, or else the coaches just decided that we did something wrong and they would make us always drop and do push-ups. And then right when we're getting ready to do this test, and we break it up, into 2 groups. So one line is getting ready to do the work. The other line is going to be the counter. So you had a partner who's going to count for you. And right when we're getting ready to start, and we're starting with push-ups, one of their teammates puts his hands on his hips, like to rest, like you would do. And you're not allowed to do that. You're not supposed to cross your arms or put your hands on your hips. And so immediately we all have to drop and do 20 push-ups on the coach's count, which is never a clean 1, 2, 3. It's like 1, and then 2, and then hold for a bit, and then, so it's a long 20 push-ups. We get up. I'm shot. My push-up game is just not as strong as the rest of these. And then we get into the actual test. I got to 36 and I was done. I couldn't do anything else. When we did the squats, no problem. I did over 90 of those, I think. Sit-ups, I got past the 50. The pull-ups, I got to 12. And the mile run, I did, I think, in under 8 minutes. So all that was fine, but I couldn't nail the freaking push-ups. And so that was pretty disappointing. When we looked at it, out of the 13 members that we had, 12 or 13 at that point, I can't remember if one guy had dropped, but I think there were 4 that had passed everything and everybody else had failed one or more item. So yeah, that was no joke. So then we get to, let's see, what do we have after that? Yeah, we did the test. We rehydrated, and then we start doing hill runs. And hill runs are basically, we're at the bottom of like this little valley where there's hills all around us. And so there are different paths cut out. And so the coach would tell us, like, they'd always give you these tasks that you had to you had to estimate the length of time it would take to complete the task. And so the coach would ask one of us, I don't know who he asked then, how long is it going to take to run to the base of this hill, go up it, we can see the hill, go up it, run around the path that you can't really see around, but you have an idea of where it is, come down the other side and run back and be in formation with the team. And I remember one guy, he said, I think he said 4 minutes, which I thought was not quite long enough. But then the coach goes, okay, you've got 2 minutes, go. So, of course, that wasn't long enough. So we kind of scramble and we panic and we just start just take off. But you can't leave without your team, so we had to turn around. But it was really, really a mess. And then we run, we get back. Of course, we didn't make the time. And anytime you miss the time, then you just get to do more punishing push-ups, squats, flutter kicks, and sit-ups, whatever they have you do. And a lot of the push-ups, too, by the way, they're not just doing push-ups. It's just holding a damn plank position, which in a lot of ways is even more taxing on the arms. So, we started to learn here, we're not going to beat the times that they give us. So let's not try to beat them. Let's communicate with each other, and let's do this together as organized and structured as possible. And that was really a big theme of the whole event. It was about teamwork. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't about actually beating the times because they were ridiculous. It was about communicating and working together as a team, and that was really one of the big takeaways from the whole event. Okay, so now it's 3 p.m., still on the first day, Friday, and we're doing what we call field gurney training. And a gurney is basically a rescue cot with these strong handles at the corners of the cot for carrying, let's say a wounded soldier in battle. And so what we would do is we put all of our sandbags onto it, and we got into groups of 4, and then we would carry the gurneys around this track. And it wasn't like a high school track. It was a lumpy, rocky track with a lot of holes and ridges, and you really need to watch where you're going. We didn't know how long we were going. They just told us to just march, and we just had to go. And what you realize quickly is you can handle the weight, your body can handle the weight, but your grip cannot. So every 25, 30 steps, we would have to switch. So pretty quickly we get a rotation, and we're just marching for a long time. We didn't even think about awareness at this point of our surroundings. It's just about, we're kind of looking at the floor and moving forward. And then a coach would surprise us from behind a bush and basically tell us, hey, you're all dead. Had you been actually rescuing somebody in a combat situation, none of you are looking out to see any points of danger. You're all dead. And so then our punishment is, more push-ups on this real gritty sand. So then we had to add awareness. We had to look around while we, were walking around. We did those for a bit, and then we start to. Then eventually the coaches give us sort of a pays to be a winner drill, where now we have this, it's the same thing we've been doing, but now we have to race around the track for, an undisclosed number of laps. And eventually they would tell us when we're finished, and then we could do that. So we did that for a few laps, and then they brought us in. There were 3 teams. My team came in last. So the reward was that we got to go over to this bike hill. It was like a track for bikes, so it was real hilly for like jumping with your bike. And they said, okay, you guys run around the track, and you better impress me. That's what the coaches said. In other words, we don't have bikes, so we have to run and jump and do something acrobatically impressive for these coaches' viewing pleasure. So we're just running, and we're just doing like Super Mario Brothers style jumps and twists. And I remember I did a couple of cartwheels, and I think the coaches actually liked that. I think they thought, like, all right, you guys you're trying. So that's good. And trying to recall this, like when I wrote the article, the times that I gave, like right now, I think it's getting around 4 p.m. They're just estimates. It's a big blur. No one had a watch on. We're basically going by the sun, and we're trying to add together how long we guessed each event, or what they call it an evolution. Each change in instruction lasted. But any gaps were filled with push-ups, squats, flutter kicks, planks, and sit-ups. There was no downtime unless we were eating. So now it's around 4:30, and now we get to do the Murph. And the Murph is a 1-mile run, 100 push-ups. No, I'm sorry, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and another 1-mile run, all while wearing your rucksack. That's the bag of sand with 30 to 35 pounds in the back. And you're wearing your combat boots and everything. So it's a heavy, loaded exercise that you have to do. And I remember the coach said, if any one of you, or any of you who failed the PST, physical screening test, if you failed any portion of it, and you do not complete the Murph in 75 minutes, you are going home. You're out of the event. This made me nervous because I didn't make the push-up mark. And like a lot of us, I think, were pretty nervous because we didn't make one or more of those marks on the test. And so, but they did something that was pretty cool. It was, they started talking about what the Murph is. The Murph is basically a workout that really goes by the name Body Armor, but it was sort of renamed after Michael Murphy, who was a Navy SEAL who died during Operation Red Wing. And if you're familiar with this was made into the book and then movie The Lone Survivor, written by Marcus Luttrell, who I actually know. He actually trained here for a while. So it was kind of a surreal moment when he talked about this, and he used it to basically say, hey, if you're too tired to do this for yourself, then maybe think about the guy it was named after, and then maybe also think about how many people have died for the country so we have the freedom to be able to do things like we're doing right now. So that was a pretty motivating event. Still nervous because I didn't know if I was going to make the 75-minute time limit. So we all lined up for the first mile. Oh, and by the way, the 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 squats were broken up into reps of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats, and you do 20 rounds of that. So we take off on the mile, and I think I'm the third guy to finish. Then we start the rounds of pull-ups, push-ups, and squats. And when you finished a set, you would say your name and the set you were on. So after my first 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, and 15 squats, then I would count out, Tooke, 1. And so then there's a guy there assisting keep up with the numbers, and he would write your count on the board to make sure everybody's doing them right. For the pull-ups, you could do kipping pull-ups. That's where you sort of whip your legs to help push your body up, because dead hang pull-ups with a rucksack, 100 of them are damn near impossible. So I'm going through these, and pretty soon, by the time I get to, I think like 8 to 10, like the halfway point, I'm ahead. I'm ahead of everyone, and so I'm feeling confident, and I'm not too tired to keep going. So I push through, and I finally get to my 20th set, and I'm ahead of the pack. I get on the track, I run around, and I finish it in 54 minutes and 11 seconds ahead of everybody else. I was really happy and relieved that I didn't fail any of the requirements up to this point. So now I can only go home if I'm injured, or if I quit, or if I just stop working, which I didn't plan on any of those happening. So that was nice. But remember what I said, if you winning one thing just takes its toll on the next thing. So yeah, this was one where I think 2 guys dropped. One guy had, I think it's called rhabdomyolysis, or just rhabdo, it's commonly called. That's where your muscles are releasing a toxic protein, and your kidneys can't filter it out, and basically the warning signs are when you pee, it just looks like coffee, and that just means your kidneys are not able to filter out this toxin, and it's a big deal. It can kill you if you don't treat it. So guy had to drop for that, and another guy, he just couldn't finish it, unfortunately. He was was a tough guy, and he trained, but he didn't quite train, I think, enough to be ready for this level of event. So hopefully he'll be back. So now I'm thinking like between 6:30. We're still getting yelled at and doing push-ups and squats and all that fun stuff. Around 8 p.m. It's dinner time. So we had already eaten a couple of meals, like the MREs, and we're constantly, drinking, and we get electrolytes, so we have all that going on. But this was our first non-MRE meal, and it was like Mediterranean-style kebabs, and it was excellent. I loved it. So, my hope there was that, okay, we can eat this, and if we eat quickly, we can maybe like sleep, for just like a power nap, 10 minutes. And that's what I had thought at the beginning. It was like we would have nap time on occasion. But what you realize is, because of the stress that your muscles are going through, sitting down and relaxing is really the worst thing you can do if you have to get up and do something else. What we had to do on every break for food was to eat and stretch, because if you didn't stretch, it was going to be very difficult to get up, and cramps were going to sort of dominate everything you tried to do. And that happened to me several times. That happened to all of us. It was just, it started becoming funny. It was almost like somebody was getting bit by something, surprisingly, because you'd see everybody just sitting there, and then out of nowhere, someone would just jump like, oh, crap, and they'd have to twist and turn and find the position to sort of unravel that cramp. So yeah, no sleeping. After dinner, we do about a 20-minute ruck with our heavy bags. Now it's getting pretty dark. It's past 8, about 8:30. We do a 20-minute ruck to a nearby bus, and then we get in the bus. We take a short drive to the base of a mountain called Palomar Mountain, and that's where we're going to start our first long ruck. Again, we had hoped that we could maybe sleep on the bus a little bit, but 2 things. One, the coaches are kind of talking to you and making you, do some fun games like memorize all your teammates' names, where they're from, and their favorite color, which I think I remember maybe 2 or 3 of those still. But also the bus is like for kids, so we had to share a seat with a teammate. So your knees are in your chest, you're really sweaty and covered in sand, and you got your clothes, your nasty clothes on, and boots, and your feet are all wrinkled, and you're dealing with cramps. So there was no sleep on the bus. We get to the base of Palomar Mountain, and then we start moving up. And we have no idea how long we're going. Unless you had climbed this mountain before on the same path, there was no way to know how long it was going to take you. And we've got our rucks on, and we've got our gallon jug in the back, which we need because we've got to drink that, but it just adds more weight to our backs. This was where we really, for me, had to use what they called like their 4 laws of mental toughness. And it came into play a lot at this time because we were not allowed to talk to each other. Only when we took a break, to rehydrate or take like a salt tablet were we allowed to talk, when we kind of stretched. So they talked about using breath control to control your mental state, positive self-talk to, keep yourself up, give yourself positive feedback, visualization to visualize like a positive outcome, like reaching the mountain, not how long is the mountain, but we're going to get there eventually. And then micro goals, which is just, okay, I'm going to get past this next turn. I'm going to go just a little further, not how long do we still have to go. So the micro goals were huge. And I know when we were walking, I kept looking up around because the moon was bright that night, so you could see the peak of the mountain, and I would look at it and I would say, man, it's right there. Like, it's not much further. We just got to get to that top, and so I think we're getting close. And every time we turn a corner, I would see a new peak because obviously that's how mountains work. There's ridges, they go up and down. And I finally, after like 10 or 12 times, I just quit doing that because it was demoralizing to think I was nearing the end and then see a new hill. I also remember walking, at a slight incline, and it's really taxing on the legs. But then I'd get to a flat surface where, got a good 100 steps where it was pretty flat. And that was such a huge relief. That was like my micro goal was like, just get to that spot where, it's going to be flat again. And then you're going to have some relief on your legs and on your back. So I would do that. I do remember one point, both my groin muscles started to cramp pretty badly. And if you know how cramps work, it's like you start to feel a cramp coming on, and then it will kind of release, and then it will come on, and any moment it's going to really seize up. So I had to walk sort of like high knee steps for a good, 50 or so steps, and while trying to breathe and focus, and that was my micro goal, is just try to get rid of these cramps. And it worked. And I had a lot of moments like that during the event where I would start to really cramp up, and then I would breathe and I would stretch and I would sort of calm myself, and they would go away. And so that was it. We eventually get to the top of this mountain, and we get to eat another MRE, which is, trash food, but nourishing nonetheless, that helped us get through it. We got to put our ruck bags up, and I was certain we were all getting a ride back, but we had to we had to walk back down the mountain. So the good news was we weren't wearing our bags, but downhill in boots was really uncomfortable. I just remember it really being rough on my feet and ankles. And also at this point, we should have been asleep. So, it's probably 3 a.m. because the mountain hike was over 9 miles one direction. So it was a total of 18 plus miles both ways. And so it's like 3 a.m., we should all be asleep normally. And we've been just working our tails off. And so started having some pretty funny hallucinations at this point, just especially the fact that we're following a vehicle that's kind of lighting the path ahead of us, and there's a vehicle behind us that's lighting our view, so it's got its lights on. And if you ever stand like in front of a car at night, and you can see your shadow is like very elongated, and then if the car turns, you see the shadows really turn. So that sort of thing was happening quite a bit, and it was just really playing tricks on all of our minds. We were just seeing animals and people and things that were never there. But that wasn't nearly as trippy as the next night, which I'll get to in a little bit. All right, so 5 a.m. We got back. We arrive at the base. We get to the bottom of the mountain. We get on the bus. We go back to the resort area. I shouldn't call it a resort. It's like a big campground where we're doing most of our training. And we take a quick restroom break and then back to the grinder, back to, working out. We change our clothes for the first time. That was good. And this was, I remember this time I cramped really bad trying to put my shoes on. I took my boots off, and when I tried to put my shoes on, two of my ab muscles like cramped up. And it was really, I never had this before. It was really bad. Like, it was like they bulged out like hernias. I thought for a second, like, oh man, did I just get a double hernia? And I had to stand up and try to stretch. I couldn't get rid of them. It took me like, a solid 2 minutes of standing, reaching my arms over my head, stretching, and trying to push my, cramping muscles back into place. So I figured that out, tried it again, couldn't get them on. It would cramp again. And so I had to get my friend to help me literally put my shoes on and tie my shoes. So I really appreciated that. Of course, while we're changing, we're given a time limit, and the time limit is we go way past it. So we come back and it's just more work. Around 7 a.m., we start with the pool training. This is what it sounds like. We got into a pool, but we got in widthwise, so not the way the laps line up, but the opposite way. And the water's actually pretty cold. They just have us jump right in, and we're just doing different types of laps. They just kind of want to see if we know how to swim, I guess. And then they picked up the intensity, and we start doing, we get out, we do push-ups on the edge. We do push-ups with our legs in the water, so it's kind of like a dip, but with the bank of the pool in front of you. I remember they had us swim under the water, try to go to the end without breathing, and most of us could do it, but it really made our hearts like skyrocket. And then we get out, work, get back in the pool. Get out, work, get back in the pool. Every time we did it, they tell us, how bad our form was, and so we do it again. And our medic, this guy named Charles, I believe, and he was a Navy SEAL, and you could just tell he just had the look of like awesome Navy SEAL killer. But he was a medic, and he was cool. He wasn't one of the coaches that was like on to us. He was there to help us. Like, hey man, how's your feet? You guys doing okay? You need a salt tablet? Whatever it was, like he was our guy. And before we did all this, he was like, oh, you guys doing the pool? Cool, man. Yeah, that one, that's gonna be a good one. It's not that bad at all. It's actually gonna be more of a recovery session. And we were all like pretty stoked, like, cool, yeah, that's about time. And it was nothing like that. It was one part of it was my least favorite part for sure. So I'll get to that in a second. So then we get out, and then we line up on the pool lengthwise. So now we're doing some pays to be a winner lap races again with the other group. And I think they broke us up into 3 teams. And so we're jumping in. We got to swim to the end. We got to swim back. A few different styles, but it was just a whole lot of that. And I think my team did pretty good on this one. I think we won a couple of the pays to be a winner ones. So we got to maybe rest around while the other team had to go again. But I was just so spent trying to win that, again, it wasn't worth it, because the next thing that we did was get into another pool. And this was it wasn't a pool for doing laps, but it was a deeper pool, 7 feet deep. And we just get in and we just tread water for a long time. And I'm pretty dense, like I don't have a lot of body fat, so I just sink quickly. And right away I hate it. I mean, in 3 minutes I just hate it, and I want to get out. And I'm kind of looking at the other guys, and they hate it, but I don't think they hate it as much as I hated it. Every time, every minute or so, I'd get some water in my mouth and I'd spit it out, so I couldn't really do the breath control thing at all here. At one point, I remember they have each of us get in the middle of the group, and they have the group splash you in the face. So it just feels like you're drowning, really. Then they'll make you tread water, but holding one hand out of the water. And not like just bring it up for a second. I mean, for a while. Then they'd have you switch hands. Then they'd have you tread water with just your feet. So it's 2 hands. They would blow the whistle. You'd have to go down to the bottom, touch the bottom, come back up. As soon as I remember coming up, and it was just that classic, like, that like, oh, I couldn't breathe. And then they blow the whistle again, and they just do that over and over. One guy had to exit the pool because he was cramping, and I really almost lied and said that I was cramping too to get out of the pool. And I feel bad now that I got that close to doing it, because it wouldn't have been true. I wasn't cramping at that time, but I was just so uncomfortable and so miserable that I wanted out of there. They eventually give us this plastic pipe, and they tell us we got to hold it, like hold it out of the water, not hold on to it. If you hold on to it, you just pull it down. So I definitely contributed the least to that group effort, because everyone else was holding it, and I would hold for a few seconds. My head would go under. I'd cough water, and I'd let go so I could use my both hands to doggy paddle and stay up. And coaches yelled at me pretty good for that one, but I really didn't care. I was just like, sorry, I can't help too much. I tried to get over and help, but I was one of the weaker ones for that one for sure. Eventually we get out. Now we have breakfast. It was a really nice breakfast burrito. That was nice that it wasn't 100% MREs. It was pretty good food some of the time. Then we get into the soldier rescue training. This was fun. This was tiring, but it was fun. Some of it was I was pretty decent at because of jiu-jitsu, because one of the soldier rescue drills is basically a fireman's carry. It's where you put the person up on your shoulders and you walk around, and we would walk around, tree, or walk around these landmarks, and we would do these different carries, sometimes with one person, sometimes two people carrying one person. It was pretty fun too. It was cool to learn how you would rescue somebody who's unconscious or has no use of their legs, and you got to carry them to safety. Then we did some more pays to be a winner, broke up into groups, and we're on this frisbee golf field. Like frisbee golf, where we have like the nets you throw the frisbees into, and so those were our markers for marching around. It's a pretty decent sized field, so probably from start to finish, a giant circle around all these. It was maybe 200 plus yards. Okay, so we had to organize how we're going to carry each other, and then stop and switch and carry again, because we're in a race trying to beat the next group. I don't think my team did too well on that one. I know we didn't win, but we may have come in second once or twice. We did it quite a few times. Then, just for the coaches' entertainment, now we're just running sprints. But we had to run down to these cones, probably 30 yards away, put our head on the cone. If you've ever seen this, it's quite fun to watch. You put your head over in the cone, you're in a bent over position, and you just circle your feet around the cone 5 times while your teammates count 1, 2, 3, and then when you get to 5, they're like, go, 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 because we're trying to win the race. And as soon as you come up, you're disoriented because of the spins, and you can't run in a straight line. And some of us did better than others. A few guys just immediately would run off, like they tripled the run distance because of how far off they faded. It was like they were being blown by the wind. And we can't help but just laugh at each other. So, moving along. Now it's noon on Saturday. So we've passed the 24-hour mark. And we joined another couple of groups. So there's a group there called 20X and 20XL. 20X signifies that you can do 20 times what you think you're capable of. That's why they name it that. And I think this 20X group was doing a 6-hour challenge. I think they have like a 6-hour, a 12-hour, a 24-hour, and Kokoro's 50 hours. And I think this group was a 6-hour and another one was a 24-hour. So we joined them. So it's a lot of people now. Now it's like over 20 to 25 people. And we get back on the grinder, and we're just doing kind of what we've been doing, all the push-up, squats, flutter kicks, and being sprayed by water and getting in and out of the ice baths. And we're just doing it with a bigger group now. And so pretty soon we get into groups and we start doing that Gurney training stuff again, where you're holding the Gurneys. But instead of 4 sandbags, there's 8 people to a Gurney, and we put all 8 sandbags in it. But only 4 people can hold the Gurney at a time because there's 4 handles. So the 4 not holding have to just keep lookout for the coaches who are hiding, trying to surprise us. We got to keep awareness. But what sucks about it is you can only march about, depending on who your teammates are, because sometimes you might be strong for 20, 30 paces, but one teammate can only do 5 to 10. That means everybody's got to switch or move at the 5 to 10. So I think we're having to switch out every like 10 steps, which made it awkward to like keep a lookout and then switch. You're doing it so quickly. Also, you had to hold your weapon when you were the lookout person, and when you were the holder, you had to put your you had to switch weapons with the person. So it was just a big cluster. And I remember at one point, the coaches they want to take your weapon. They want to take your weapon because it's just a big no-no to lose your weapon, as it should be in like real combat. You lose your weapon, then you suck. You're going to die, and you're not going to be able to protect the rest of your teammates. And they called my team, like, Tooke, put your gurney down. And they're like, one of you lost your weapon. And we're looking, and like, who was it? And so I'm in the Kokoro group, and my teammates mostly in the like 20X group. So we're supposed to be like the more organized, have our stuff together guys. And so I kind of take charge. I'm like, guys, listen up. Pay attention, okay? It's okay. Nobody's in trouble, but let's find out who lost their weapon so we can move forward and do this. And the coach interrupts me. He's like, Tooke, it was you idiot. And I was just like, I was so embarrassed at that moment, but I was too tired to be, to look like I was embarrassed. And he's like, you know what a lost weapon cost you? And I'm like, my life and the life of my crew. And he's like, yes, and 50 push-ups. Do them. And so I had to count 50 push-ups for everybody. I don't think they were too happy, but everyone was screwing up so much that we all got to be the cause of somebody else's suffering like that at one point or another. We come back to the grinder, and the 20X, the 6-hour people, they kind of get up front of everybody else, and they start leading the count on just more miserable workout things. And then they stop, and we all kind of come to attention. And then they say, 20X, you are secured. And that's what it means to basically finish. They don't say you're finished, you're done, because it's positive. They say you're secured, as in you have secured the mission, right? You finished what you started. And so we all cheer them on, the Kokoro guys and the 20XL guys who are still part of their 24-hour challenge. We're cheering them, praising them, and it's bittersweet because we're like, man, we would like to be done too, and we know we got a lot more left. But it was awesome. It was cool because what I love about this is you don't just go from nothing to the hardest thing in the world. They have events that you can train for that are lower, and a lot of guys that start with the 6-hour one eventually do the 12, eventually do the 24, and then a lot of them go on and do the full 50. I had never done those, but I was familiar. And I felt that my training, I was ready to do the 50. So now it's like 1:30. It's lunchtime. I think we had Jimmy John's. I'm not a big Jimmy John's person, but it was so much better than the MRE, so it was great. Now we get to do some log PT. That means like you're basically lifting up a giant log with a team in a series of commands that are mostly holding it high above your head. So I wrote about this in the article I posted to the website, but I want to like really explain what this was. So you stand beside this log, you and the team, and the log is lengthwise, and you're facing the direction that the log is pointing, I guess. And so you train with bags beforehand to get ready for this. You train like with your sandbag. So they teach you the order. 1 is everybody kneels down beside the log. 2, you pick it up together at hip level. 3, you prop it up to your near side shoulder. 4, press the log into like an overhead position. So you're just holding it with straight arms above your head. 5, lower it to the other shoulder. So now it's on the other side of you. 6, lower it to your hip. 7, lower it to the floor. 8 is when you stand up and you count whatever rep you did. So, I remember thinking like, okay, that's fine. I had done these before at the event I did in 2014, but I forgot how they did it. They never count 1 through 8. They count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's as far as they'll get before they're going to switch. So I've gone up over my head to the other shoulder, and then they'll go back to 4. So 4 count means it's over your head. And so 4 was the most popular number that we heard during this whole thing. So it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 3, 4. And you just start getting hopeful when he changes like directions like 3, 4, 5. You're like, oh, I'm on the way down. And you're not at all. You're just doing dozens of these. And then eventually, and then they'll have you hold it over the head like 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4. And you're frozen in this upright position, just arms trembling, just shaking in fatigue. And then they'll give you a number for one team member to count. And that number is anywhere a 10, divisible by 10 number of anywhere from 30 to 70, I think was the most we counted. Then eventually, when you're disoriented, distracted, and off your rocker, not knowing what you're doing, they count you down to the 8, and then you stand up. And of course, by this time, we forgot that we're even supposed to be counting reps. So no one says anything. And then the coach is like, they yell, they just yell at you. So then we got to get down and do push-ups with our feet on the log. It's just hilarious. And we got to do it again. Then we start again. Same kind of count, same kind of distraction, same misery, same holding it above your head with a long count you got to do. And then eventually we set it down. And I think we counted 2 as the rep because it was the second time. But that was wrong because the first one didn't count. So it was actually 1. So that means so far nothing is counted. So we got to do it again until we eventually get to 1. And then we would mess up. And I don't remember how long this took. It was a long, long time. Somehow we eventually got 8 reps in a row with a whole lot of holding it above our head and pressing it from 3 to 4 to 5 positions over and over again, back and forth. After that, we get to carry those logs around the same track that we use for the Gurney training. And this was interesting because there's a technique to it. You cannot walk in a straight line forward or you will step on your partner's feet in front of you. You would all do it. So you angle the log like at a 45-degree angle to the track. So you're basically not perpendicular, but you're like 45 degrees. This allows your feet the room that they need to walk. But it's super awkward because the front guy and the back guy have to be at the same pace. If one of those is a little faster, a little slower, the log either turns too parallel or too perpendicular. And so that just happened constantly. And so we eventually kind of figured out, and we walk, and then every once in a while, and we just had to decide as a team when we were going to switch, because your shoulder can only take so much pressure before you got to press it and switch shoulders. When you switch shoulders, that 45-degree angle, let's say it was like the front of the log is forward and to the left. Now you switch shoulders. Now the front of the log has to be forward and to the right. So you've got to figure that out every time you switch. Really tricky, but we eventually kind of figured it out. And we walked around the track just a few times. Then we have to do the one that was much worse than that, which was holding the log straight in front of you like you're doing an arm curl. Very unsustainable. Can only take a few. Oh, and there's less of us now because there's not enough room because we're all shoulder to shoulder now. So instead of 8 people bearing the load, only 6 of us can. So 6 people would walk with the log in one direction while the other 2 would stay back in a plank position waiting for the coach to blow the whistle while those 2 would run up and alleviate 2 other members while they got to go in the plank position. So basically you were kind of in for 2 rounds, out for 1, resting in a plank position. And what would happen is every time you step, the log would just slowly roll down your arms. And it's just very taxing. I remember I was really concerned about my bicep because I had surgery on a torn bicep like almost a year ago. And I was hoping, that it wouldn't be a problem. And luckily it wasn't. It was just really, really difficult. Then we kind of figured out this technique where you hike the log up in front of you, like right in front of your face. We would all count 1, 2, 3, and you would kind of shuck it up walk again, and it would immediately come rolling down. You can only do a few of those before you just didn't have any more hiking power. And then luckily the 2 teammates would come, put the log on your shoulder while they switched out, and you did it again, and we get the log eventually around the track. That was miserable. We come back, the 20X group, and we're back to the grinder, more push-ups, sit-ups, squats, flutter kicks, an ice bath, and a whole lot more hill runs, but now it was way more crowded. And, this group, because they hadn't been doing it as long as us, they had not quite learned to communicate the same way. So it was a little more trying to win and beat the other people up the team, but the coaches want to see you do it collectively. And so we got in trouble for that, for not doing it, not working as a team how we should have. Eventually, we get through all that suffering. Now it's dinner time, and we had some I think chicken and bean bowls. These were quite good. Then after dinner, now we break into 2 groups. Each is a blend of the Kokoro and the 20X, but we're just all mixed together, and they break us into not separating the Kokoro and the 20X, but each group had a combination of both types of members, and they call us Alpha and Bravo. Our group that started with 13 now just has 8. When we combine with the 20X, we have 22 people total that are left to keep working. We run to this bus about a mile away, and then we hop on the bus and we drive down to Carlsbad Beach. Again, didn't get to rest. We're sweaty, got sand in every crevice of our body, and we're on that little tiny bus again. Not a little tiny bus, but it's made for little people. It's made for elementary school children. We get to the beach, and found out later that the ruck, the stretch of beach that we rucked was only 5 miles. But I think we probably did at least another mile worth of step climbing, because this beach, basically it's kind of a cliff that is a straight drop off, and then the beach starts, and then there's the ocean. So every few hundred yards there's a stairwell, some steps, 100+ steps each one, that lead up to a local neighborhood. And we went up every single one as we were going. This was fun, actually. We come to the lifeguard stations, and these are basically stations that are occupied during the day. All of us can fit on a station, and now it's night, so nobody's there. You're not supposed to go on them, but of course we did. And the first task we got was we got to get our rucksacks up into the station, get our bodies up into the station, and put our rucksacks back on in the time limit. It's 9 feet off the ground. We're not allowed to use the ramp. Otherwise, it would be simple. So we got to scale this thing, and it's awkward and pretty dangerous, actually. I remember the coach asked, "So how long is that going to take?" And it's 2 minutes, coach. It's okay, you got 1:15, go. And then we all try to do it, and we actually are pretty fast with this one. But we missed the time. So instead of just push-ups now, we get to run out into the water and dip completely under. It's 65 degrees water, and it's 55 degrees at night on the beach with the wind blowing. So really cold. So when you feel that level of cold, you actually look forward to push-ups and squats. Then he gives us another chance at it, and we actually nail the time. And I think the coach was kind of mad, because every time they'd given us for anything up to this point, we just never made it. So you could tell he was impressed but disappointed. Damn, you guys did a good job, but I'm gonna definitely lower the time next time I give you a task. This was I know this was pretty illegal. You're not supposed to go on those. And there were a couple of times where there were just some late night, people just hanging out on the beach and smoking weed, and they would see us, and I know we entertained them, so I was pretty happy with that. The funny part is every time we walk by, they're all "Oh, thank you for your service," and none of us are in the military, but obviously it looks like we are. So this was my sleepiest moment of the whole event. I'm kind of like, God, like 35 to 40 hours sleep deprived. It's late Saturday night, or really it's Sunday morning at this point. We've been walking up the steps, getting in and out of these lifeguard stations, walking up the steps. And I really, at some point, I tried to make an effort to sleepwalk, like close my eyes, because I could have. I knew if I closed my eyes, I would drift off into sleep really fast. But try to keep my legs, engaged, like somehow make my brain work where my legs will carry me, but my brain will sleep. Terrible idea. You can't do that when you're walking on a beach where there's rocks everywhere and there's drop offs and there's holes. So I realized it wasn't going to work. And I just would kind of do some like Wim Hof style, like deep breathing to try to wake me up. And it would, sort of stimulate my mind a little bit and open my eyes. But it was like 15 seconds before I just wanted to crash into sleep again. So I had to do a lot of breathing. This is where the hallucinations got really strong. And I remember talking to my teammates, and they all said the same thing. They're like, yeah, man, we're seeing some real weird stuff that's not there. And I would see like animal shapes, and I would think like, man, are there like, I feel like there's like, that looks like there's a bear and a raccoon all on the beach, which I know is not true. And I couldn't tell what it was until I would get close, and then I would see it was just like a rock with a regular rocky pattern on it. But it was really strange. And nobody was crazy. We all knew what time it was. We all knew what we were doing. But, our brains are wired to make sense of what we see. They seek patterns. And when you're that tired, your brain has trouble making sense of what it's looking at. So it just creates a different image. One time I remember walking up another flight of stairs, and I saw what really looked like really little girls, like three of them, dressed in all white and waving, and they were wearing white gloves, and they had like white little bonnets on. It's like dressed like someone from like the 1800s Victorian era would dress, and they're waving, like off to the darkness of the beach where there's no one there. And I knew that wasn't there, but I was wondering like, I wonder what this is. And when I got up to it, it was just like three flowers in this pot, as part of the decor at the top of this stairway leading into a new neighborhood. So that was kind of funny, a little bizarre. A few times I remember walking, and I was almost certain that the teammates walking in front of me were walking backwards and staring at me, which would make no sense, but it felt really strong. And I also had the feeling that a teammate next to me, just to my right, was trying to get my attention, and he had something in his hand. He was putting it up to my face to show me, but trying to keep quiet, like it's a secret. Don't let anybody know. And I'd flinch and I'd look at him, and he's just walking like I am. He's not doing anything like that. So eventually I started just accepting, like, all right, these hallucinations are not real, so don't freak out. Just keep going. What got me out of that was near hypothermia. Was when we got to get into the water. And so you run out into the water, run back, and you got to do X number of push-ups, sit-ups, squats, all with time limits that no one could make. And then I'm wide awake again, because you just can't be sleepy in a really freezing situation like that. And I looked forward to the squats and push-ups because they would warm us up again. We did a drill called the sugar cookie drill, which I'd done this before. I was actually pretty good at this one. It's where you get completely wet, you come back, you got to cover your body in sand. I mean, like everything, your eyes, your mouth, your nose, your whole head, every part of your body has to be covered in sand. If there's any patches that don't have sand on them, then you got to go get wet and do it again. But if you pass, then you just go get wet, and then you come back, and there can't be any sand left on you. They want to make sure you cleaned yourself off enough in the freezing surf. So, so that was pretty fun. So eventually, around 5:30 a.m., we come to the end of the ruck, and we're told that a bus is waiting for us. Like, we're done. And we all kind of like looked at each other, because we knew that there was a part where you link arms, and you sit and lie down in the surf together while the waves crash on the back of your head, right? We all knew that was just part of it. Even though this Kokoro event changes every time, that's like a constant. And we're like, the coach just forgot, or maybe they were running late and we got to like do it. So we get on the bus, it drives 50 feet, slams on the brakes, and the coach is like, all right, get up. We have not secured lifeguard duty. And he orders us all out. And we're like, of course, we knew it was coming. And then we go back to the water, link arms, sit down, lie down, like head touching the sand. The water's only like, between 5 inches deep and a foot and a half deep, depending on when the wave comes in. And we just lie back, and we just have to take these waves hitting us over and over again. Eventually the coach says, all right, if you can sing the Star Spangled Banner all the way through, then you can get out. And we shiver sung our way through it and finished. And that was pretty fun, actually. So we finish, we get in the bus, we head back. I remember at this point, I took my boots off and my socks off and I wrung them out in the bus. It's kind of gross, but I think we're all doing that just to let my feet try to dry a little bit, because everybody's feet were so soaked and you get blisters and it's just no fun. The blisters, my feet actually held up well. Some of the guys would have blisters like the size of quarters peel off the bottom of their feet, leaving that dark pink red undersurface of skin there. And I just know that was miserable for them to have to walk with all that weight bearing down on their feet. So I was lucky my feet hung in there. We get back to the campground, and this is where I actually take my only bathroom break. Now, we're drinking a lot of fluid, so, number one's happening often, but not number two. And this is the first time I did, and this is like hour 47. It's the first time I had to use the bathroom. And I guess we're just burning so many calories that just not enough of the food went through. So, no big deal. So now we get back to the grinder work. We do some more. We get back to the grinder. We do some more work with the 20XL team, and they're kind of finishing up the last moments of their challenge, and we're all doing it together. We know they're nearly done, but we still have however many hours. We know we're going till approximately noon. Eventually, after an intense burst of exercise, the coach announces, 20XL, you are secured. So now the 24-hour challenge group has completed their task. We all celebrate and cheer them on. They do a quick little award ceremony where they're given a shirt and hat and stuff like that. And it was awesome because 24 hours is no joke. It's really tough. It's not 50 hours, but it's not nothing. It's a big deal, and these guys were exhausted and tired, and we were all proud of them. And we were also kind of like, we still got stuff to do. So we were, that moment was short-lived, and then it was back to business. 9 a.m., IHOP. I know as I'm telling this, it sounds like I'm mentioning more good meals than the MREs. I'm just not mentioning the MREs because they're not noteworthy. They're awful. But we had a lot of those. But the IHOP was awesome. We had eggs, hash browns, and biscuits, and sausage and bacon, and for some reason way more pancakes than everything else. And we all got kind of full, and the coaches were adamant. They're like, eat your pancakes, eat your effing pancakes. They'd bring them around, and you're going to need the calories. And I'm looking at the sun, thinking, man, we only got a couple more hours. How much harder is it going to be? We're almost done. Do we really need all this stuff? And we're like, yes, and we scarf it down the best we can. Our medic he checks our feet and, checks us for any medical issues, making sure we're kind of ready to go a little bit more. And like I said, I'm looking at the sun. I know it's closer to over our head than it is to the horizon. So I'm thinking it's between 9 and 10 o'clock. And we get back on the grinder, and the coaches let us know, hey, guys, anyone can leave right now. It's fine. You can quit, and we will give you the full credit that the 20XL crew just celebrated. And it's a hell of an accomplishment. If you complete that, and there's no shame. It's they're just trying to kind of get under our skin, and they're telling us like, look at them, they're eating pizza and they're relaxing. They're reminding us how great it would be to be done with this thing. At this point, it doesn't phase us like it did the 20X group, the one that was a 6 hour when they finished. Like, we don't care. The coaches have been telling us that we got 12 more hours left. We know that's not true, but we're fine with it. We're dead tired, but we're too into this thing now. So they're gonna have to kill us. We're not quitting. So they keep telling us 12 more hours, but we're like, no, just let's hang in there, guys. We got just a little more and we're done. So we change again. This is the second time and the last time we change our clothes. And we get back and it's nice, dry socks, and our shoes were wet, but it's still semi-dry. We line up, and then immediately they just order us into the ice baths. And it was just back and forth, like more grinder stuff. So all the dry feeling we had lasted like 10 minutes, and then that was gone. Then we're told to get our sandbags out of our rucksacks, which we did that before for the log training, but it was just to train the motion. So we get it here. Then they do this pays to be a winner drill. We got to run up the base of this nearby mountain, like run to the top of it. It's not real tall, but it's probably 100 yards away and then 50 yards uphill. I remember this being one of the moments where just physically my whole body felt more exhausted than at any other moment. Just a short, wave of that, but because we're running with the sandbag, and we run, I get to the base and I try to climb, and I just can't force a run type motion. It just turns into a walk. And I beat a couple guys, but a couple guys beat me, and I just couldn't go any faster than this pathetically slow walk up the hill to finish. It was really bad. We get to the top. The two winners get a rest, and we had to do like some push-ups with our hands in the bag. And then we get to march in circles around the top of this like hill. So it's like part of the track area there was more uphill, and then it kind of leveled off and returned around in the circle. And the coach was like, okay, when you're going uphill, you can hold the bag at your chest. When it levels off, you have to hold it over your head. Everyone sucks at this. Me more than most, but everyone's pretty bad at not letting the bag just crash down on top of our heads over and over again. And when they thought that we did that too much, they'd drop us down in a push-up position with our hands on the bag. We'd have to do these awkward push-ups because now you got to conform your hand to a bag, and it's not as stable as a regular push-up. We do a ton of laps around this track over and over again, and then eventually the coach leads us to the top of this another part of the hill just right next to it, and it's kind of like it's like a peak, we're on the peak of like two kind of valleys, right? One, on each side. And the coach says, all right, gentlemen, turn around, look down there. What do you see? And we see the parking lot where we had all met right before the event began. And the coach reminded us of how that felt, how, we were fresh, but we were nervous, and we all kind of decided to take a step forward when he asked if we were up for the challenge. So it was a little emotional, right? We're remembering, wow, like it was just a short time ago, but it's actually been like about 49 hours. And then he says, okay, now turn around this way and look down. What do you see? And it's the grinder, the battlefield. And it's like the same view we kind of started with when we first began this event. And he says, now, think about everything you've done from the moment you met in the parking lot until now. Think about those low moments and those high moments when you pushed through, when you wanted to give up, but you didn't, and you lifted each other up and you made it happen and you got through to this point. And now we're kind of like getting emotional. Now some tears are starting to swell up in our eyes a little bit. We're still tired because we're holding these damn sandbags. And then the coach does something pretty special, and this was really cool. He says, now, take every self-doubt, every negative emotion, every negative feeling, every thought that does not serve you and your purpose and what you believe in, and put it in the bag. Put it in the sandbag. It's like a metaphor for, getting rid of negative energy. And then he flips open his big Navy SEAL knife, and he comes around one by one, and he slits open the bottom of our bags. And we just feel that weight fall from our arms. And so all the sand just kind of falls to our feet. And when he's finished, he says, now leave all that right here on top of this mountain. Now we're sniffling. We can all hear each other sort of like, trying to hold back the tears. But it was a really powerful moment. And around this time, the head coach, Coach Devine, he kind of shows up. He hasn't been here since the beginning. So there's two things that are pretty special about this. One is that just that powerful visualization of leveraging this intense crucible challenge we just went through for good and for leaving negativity out of our lives. And then two is we're almost done with this damn thing. That's what we thought, because we see the coach and it's like, oh, he's here, cutting the bag open, all that. Of course, this is perfect ending. This is perfect. But it wasn't quite done. We march back down to the grinder and we line up. We're thinking we're going to do a little more work, I guess, but we didn't. The coaches just kind of chill out, and then Coach Devine steps in and he takes over and he's talking to us a little bit, and we're almost sleeping on our feet. So he has us do some yoga to get our bodies stretched out. Our muscles are just I remember at one point, every part of my body that I touched was sore. Like every muscle I would touch, I'm like, let me try to find a non-sore muscle. And I couldn't find. Was hilarious. Every muscle in my body was sore, by a lot. So we're there. We do some yoga. That helps to loosen us up a little bit. Then we start doing some really cool breathing that sort of got our minds, got us feeling good. It was like single nostril breathing. So deep inhale through one nostril, deep exhale through the nostril, and then switch. And we did that for a while, and he just talking to us about, how to use this moment to improve ourselves. And then he talked about what Kokoro means, the name Kokoro, what the event is named after, and how it's an ancient Japanese word that means to merge mind, body, and soul. And how the purpose of this event is not just to do something physically hard, but it's to connect our mind and body and ultimately come together and connect our soul, that deeper sort of spirit energy, into becoming the best the best people we can be. And it was such a great moment. I remember thinking at that point, I was like, oh, this is the best ending. This is even better than the mountain, what he's saying to us right now. And right as we all had that feeling, the alarm sounds, the water hoses kick on, and the coaches scream, down! And what we had started with, the breakout session, we were now doing all over again. Only now it's like way fast. Like the repetition, the pace of reps with the push-ups and the squats and the sit-ups and the flutter kicks are faster than ever. They put way more ice in the ice bucket, and they had buckets full of water. So as we're doing the flutter kicks, they didn't have this at the beginning or any time up to this point. They brought these buckets of water, and they were just pouring these buckets of water into our faces, and which is feels like you're drowning. It's like not waterboarding, but it's close. And then they would say, bear walk to the ice bath. You get in the ice bath, but now it's like a slushy. It's like more, just as much ice as water. Way colder than it's been up to this point. It just shocks us back to reality. So in and out of one, in and out of the other, back to the grinder, good half hour of that. Then we have to bear walk over to the logs, put our feet on the logs, and just start doing push-ups. And it's a little different than regular push-ups because you got to basically curl your feet around the round edge of the log to keep it from rolling away. We do that, and then the coach comes over and he's has us get ready to do more log PT, right? So it's like just like I told you before, if you remember, it's like the 1, kneel down to grab the log. 2, pick it up by your hip. 3, put on your shoulder. 4, press it overhead. 5, other shoulder. 6, other hip. 7, floor. 8, stand up. But they never go in that order. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, constantly pressing left, right, holding it, counting to like 50, 60, or 70, pressing it again. We're screwing up. Every time we screw up, we got to put the log down, put our feet back on, do more push-ups, pick it up again. And then the coach, the speed, that's one thing I remember, like the speed of the log work was so much faster than what we had done before. And then they would hold it. And then this is one thing that they added, which was really cool. So you've probably heard like the term hoo-yah, right? Hoo-yah! It's like what they say, the Navy SEAL battle cry, essentially. And so he would have us hold it in the up position, and the coach would just scream it, and we'd have to yell it back. He would scream it, we'd have to yell it back. And he did like, I don't know how many he did, but it was like, I swear it felt like 40 or 50 where I was really losing my voice and my arms are shaking because we're holding this freaking log over our heads. We eventually get it all the way to the floor, and then Coach Devine takes over. And I don't know how, but his count was even faster than Coach Rob's count. And we're just like shaking. And I remember the log almost falling on us. Like we couldn't hold it up. And I remember like, it's very tempting to rest because you could totally get away with it. You really could, because you can't tell who's taking pressure off of their hands. But I don't think any of us did. I remember feeling like I wanted to, but I would know how much my teammate in front of me would suffer and have to bear more, my weight. So I just locked my arms and just like dug as deep as I could to hold it. And we all did that, even when the log was slowly kind of like lowering itself. And then the coach would say like, get that log up. And then we'd find a way to like get it up. And then he'd start with the hoo-yahs again. This is Coach Devine now. But it was way more than like the 40 that the coach did. I think he did like 60 or 70. It was an insane like number, and it was really fast, and we're all keeping up and somehow not dropping this log. It's like he knew our breaking point. And eventually he counts 5, 6, 7, 8. We stand up, and then he says, Kokoro 58, you are secured. And then we just like burst into like hugs and celebration and tears, and just it was perfect. It was so much. It was the right way to do it. I'll say it that way. The top of the mountain would have been great, right? That speech with the sand and the knife, that was beautiful. And the bottom of the base with the breathing and the visualization and the meaning of Kokoro and all that would have been just as good. But the fact that we went out more intense and faster than any other point in it kind of proved like we're not done. Even now, we're done. We completed the event. But we're not all dying here. Like we could actually do more. And we didn't know that. We needed the coaches to like take us to that point. And I'm so glad they did. I'm so glad they did it that way. I'm like very grateful that we went out like that. So, in the end, some of the best money I've ever spent. And I'm not endorsing these guys. I mean, I am, but I don't get anything for it. I'm just saying it was amazing. And I remember at the end, because we get this like commemorative coin. You can't buy it. It's like when you complete like an event. And we got a shirt and we got a hat that says Kokoro. It's a cool hat, nothing special. The joke was like, oh, dude, you got a $3,300 hat too, because that's what we paid for this event, or at least that's what I paid. I don't know if anybody else got any deals, but man, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And I'm happy I did it. I'm happy that I got a chance to have this experience and share it with you guys. Share the lessons I learned with my team and my family. And that was it. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. I don't think I'll ever do anything. I mean, I'll do something like this again, but I won't do this again unless it's with somebody who I really want to share that experience with. But once is enough. And that's it. So thank you guys for listening, and see you soon.